why do kids cheat? I mean, it's a question every parent and teacher has probably asked themselves. Is it just a phase they'll grow out of, or could it be a sign of something more? Well, today, we're diving into a fascinating new study that built a whole virtual lab to figure out what's really going on in a kid's mind. Let's get into it.
So, let me ask you this. Picture your child, they're alone, staring at a really tough test question. And the answers? They're right there, just hidden nearby. Would they peek? It's that exact moment, that exact choice, that a new study wanted to understand. And what they found is pretty surprising.
All right, so why focus on cheating? We all kind of know it happens, right? Especially with younger kids. But what researchers really wanted to figure out is this. Is it just a normal, messy part of growing up and learning the rules? Or can it sometimes point to a deeper issue with how a child understands honesty and discipline?
To get to the bottom of it, a team of researchers from the University of British Columbia and the University of Toronto came up with this really clever experiment to see what kids actually do when they think no one is watching.
You know, the researchers start from a really key point. A certain amount of cheating is actually, well, normal for young kids. They're testing boundaries, seeing what they can get away with. So the real question isn't if they cheat, but why, and what those patterns might tell us about their development.
So how in the world do you study cheating without, actually encouraging kids to cheat? Well, this is the really cool part. The researchers came up with a brilliant solution. They created a virtual lab. Here's how it all went down. Okay, so check out this setup. It was pretty ingenious. They got over 400 kids from ages 4 all the way to 11 to hop on a Zoom call for a few academic tests. The motivation? Gold stars and a shiny A grade. But then, on the final question, one that was designed to be almost impossible, the researcher would suddenly say, "Oh, I have to step away for a second." But right before they left, they'd tell the kid, "The answer is hidden at the bottom of the screen, but whatever you do, don't peek." And of course, a hidden screen recording captured every single move. It was the perfect and totally ethical way to see what would happen next.
But what the kids did on that Zoom call, that was really only one piece of the puzzle. To see the whole picture, the researchers needed more context. And so, they turned to the people who know these kids best, their parents.
So while the kids were taking their tests, their parents were busy filling out 2 really important surveys. The first one, called the CBCL, is kind of a broad screening tool. Think of it like a wide-angle lens, looking for any major behavioral issues. But the second one, the SDQ, is more like a zoom lens. It focuses in on very specific day-to-day behaviors, like hyperactivity or, and this is key, conduct problems. This difference between the big picture and the tiny details, it turned out to be absolutely crucial.
Okay, so the team has all the data. They know what the kids did when they were alone, and they have all this amazing insight from the parents. So what did they actually find? First, let's just look at the raw numbers. Get this. On average, kids cheated 2.8 times out of 6 possible chances. That's nearly half the time, which right off the bat confirms that, yeah, this is a really common behavior.
So the next big question is, what made some kids cheat more than others? The researchers looked at everything. Gender? Nope. Ethnicity? Family religiosity? None of them made a real difference. The single biggest predictor was actually something much, much simpler: the child's age.
And you can see it really clearly here. The younger children were way more likely to peek, but as they got older, that cheating rate dropped a lot. In fact, age alone explained almost 20% of the difference in who cheated and who didn't. It suggests that as kids mature, so do their self-control and their grasp of the rules.
But age wasn't the whole story, not even close. So the researchers asked a really important follow-up question. If we account for age, if we take that out of the equation, what else can predict cheating? And that's when a surprising link popped up from one of those parent surveys.
And this table right here, this is the breakthrough. That broad clinical survey, it showed no link to cheating. What about emotional problems or hyperactivity from the other survey? Nope, nothing there either. But then one category stood out, big time: conduct problems. That was the hidden connection.
So, what exactly are conduct problems? We're not talking about a child having an occasional tantrum or a bad day. This is about a more consistent pattern of behavior. Things like constantly defying adults, frequently breaking rules, or really struggling with discipline. The study found a direct link. Kids who showed more of these specific behaviors were also more likely to cheat, no matter their age.
Okay, so what does all of this actually mean for parents, for educators, for all of us, really? Let's break down the big takeaways from this whole thing. So here's the bottom line. First, a little cheating is a pretty normal part of growing up, and it usually fades over time. Second, a one-off peaking incident doesn't mean there's some big clinical problem. But, and this is the huge takeaway, frequent cheating can be linked to that specific pattern of conduct problems. It suggests that for some kids, cheating on a test isn't an isolated event. It might actually be one piece of a much larger pattern of rule breaking.
This research gives us a whole new lens to look at honesty. Instead of just reacting to a single moment of cheating, maybe it's more helpful to zoom out and look at the bigger picture of a child's behavior. So the question this leaves us with is, if we can spot these patterns early on, what can we all do to help nurture a rock-solid foundation of honesty in our kids right from the very start? Definitely something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.